Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lucia and this is Lulu's Leaves.
I'm no good at being good, but I never said I was. And I feel misunderstood, cause I'm trying hard to love.
In today's video, I am going to be going over my Ikea Greenhouse Cabinet behind me. It has been about 1 year since I got the cabinet, and my feelings have definitely changed throughout this year, and I just want to talk to you guys about, the pros and cons of having one. I am going to talk about the cabinet in 3 different categories and give it a score. I'm going to talk about the design of the cabinet, the functionality, and the price. I find those are the most important topics to cover when discussing this guy because it's not just a furniture piece, it actually does help your plants out if you use it correctly. So that is what we are going to be discussing in today's video. I really hope you guys are interested in this. I'm sure if you clicked on today's video, this is something that you are interested in learning a little bit more about, whether you have one and you are trying to gauge how other people are feeling about their cabinets, or if you're looking to get one, this is going to be a really good video for you. So stay tuned for that. If you aren't already subscribed to my channel, definitely click that button down below and give this video a thumbs up. I also have YouTube memberships and I'm really excited to share that the lowest tier now gains access to all of my extra content available. I just want to be clear that the new lowest tier is the Hoya Hose 2.0. When you go to join, you'll see that the bottom 2 tiers have been retired. So just make sure that if you want to join, you do join Hoya Hose 2.0 and not one of the retired levels. So if you want to join as a member, now is the best time to do so. For only $6.99 Canadian per month, you get access to all of my videos that I have made just for my members. You gain access to a Discord group chat. I will mention your name at the end of my video and so much more. So if you want to go check out the different perks, definitely go click the join button down below, or there's also a link in the description that you can check out if you don't see the join button. But yeah, definitely go check out my memberships if you're interested. It's definitely the best time to do it. Well guys, let's jump right into the video, why don't we? The first category that I'm going to be talking about is the design of the cabinet. From day one, I absolutely loved the way that this cabinet looks, and I still definitely do. It looks so beautiful, especially if you have all white furniture, which I do in this room, or if you have all black furniture or a darker vibe. IKEA also makes the black cabinet, so any vibe like that would look amazing. But the best part about this cabinet is that you can see so well the plants that you keep inside it. And because they're growing really nicely because of the things that I'm going to talk about in this next category, I really do feel like it's a beautiful option if you just want a really nice furniture piece and want to highlight some of your fancier plants, or if you want somewhere to keep your really rare plants that you don't necessarily trust out in the open. It's also a really fantastic option for people with cats because obviously cats can't get into the cabinet if you keep the door shut. Luckily, my cat doesn't go too hard on my plants. There are times where she'll get fixated on a certain plant, but it's pretty easy to get her away from them. And now that she's been a part of my family for a little while now, she definitely has less interest in the plants. So I don't have that problem necessarily, but if there is a plant that I'm really struggling with or she's super attracted to, I usually do throw it in there. This goes kind of in both categories, but I'll talk about the decorations that go in the cabinet, especially for this design category, because I don't think I would like the cabinet as much if it didn't have all of the accessories that I do have in it. I think they make it look really cute, and I don't even know what the style would be necessarily, but I really do love the pegboard in the back. It gives you the ability to create almost a living wall on your cabinet, and without those pegboards or without any other substitute for the pegboard, you're going to have a lot of background space that's not going to be filled up. And I don't necessarily like the look of that, especially because it lets you see through the back of the cabinet, and sometimes you're running wires. So yeah, I like to keep the pegboards on the back, and I think that they look really great, and they also serve a great function. which we will talk about. Personally, I also only use one added shelf in there, so I get 2 levels of plants. The cabinet does come with 3 shelves, I believe, but I definitely didn't want to use all of those because I wanted to put some taller plants in there. And I also wanted to use the pegboards. So if you use those other shelves, you can't really use those pegboards properly. Or you could use maybe one on top and have a few other shelves, but you couldn't use all of the shelves and have both pegboards. I think the only thing that I would change about this cabinet, because even if it's just being used as a display cabinet, a lot of people do want to fix lights into them. And while you can, it's not going to look pretty unless you drill a hole in the bottom of the cabinet. And that, let me tell you, is a lot of work. I'm sure you guys have seen my video on putting it together. And if you haven't seen my video, you've probably seen other people's videos. And it's just a lot. So my only complaint with the design of this cabinet is I wish that they had pre-built, you know, a circle with one of those covers. I forget what it's called. Kind of has a weird, I think it kind of has a weird name. That's why I can't remember it. But I really do think that this cabinet would have a perfect score if it did have one of those circles for wire management. So that is all that I'm going to discuss in terms of design. So now I want to give it a score. The score that I'm going to be giving the design of this cabinet is an 8.5 out of 10. I really do love the look of it, but there are definitely a few things that I would change to make it a little bit better for us planty people. I understand that that's not the only purpose of this cabinet, but I can promise you that the majority of the people buying these cabinets, at least these days, are using it for greenhouses. So next up, we are going to move on to functionality. The functionality of this cabinet is what makes it so special. And when I first started with this cabinet, it really worked so well for me. The only issue that I've had now is due to my pure laziness, and I need to figure this out. So since I've moved, I haven't reset up my power bar, which is what automates everything in the cabinet. So right now, I don't always have the lights on, and this is a relatively dark room, so some of the plants aren't doing as well as they probably could be doing if I had those lights on a timer. And although I have weatherproofed this cabinet, I'm not getting the humidity that I necessarily thought I would be. I do find that the humidity stays at least 10% higher than the rest of the room just because it's closed in glass, but I do wish that I could get a little bit higher humidity. Now I've actually put in one of my new humidifiers from Planty, and with that smaller humidifier, I am actually able to get a much better humidity level in there. It is something that I have to fill up daily, but even if I fill it up every other day, I think the plants are really going to appreciate it. In order for the cabinet to function properly though, there are a lot of extra things that you are going to need. I'm not going to go over everything that you need for the cabinet in this video, but I will link the video where I set my cabinet up down below and in the cards above so that you guys can go check that out if you want to make one for yourself. But you definitely do need a few things to make this cabinet work. You don't have to get them, but without weatherproofing your cabinet and adding those strips just to keep that extra humidity in, it's just going to be a display cabinet, and it's not necessarily going to be the greenhouse that you might desire. I have had a few issues with airflow in the past with some of my anthuriums, and I think, you know, I've had to move a few different plants out of there. With the current lighting that I do have, which just take this with a grain of salt because you could absolutely change out the lights, I haven't been able to keep syngoniums in the cabinet. They just dry out way too quickly. That is one problem. If the humidity is not high enough, you are going to have your plants dry out really quickly because they're under constant grow lights. So just make sure that if you are not keeping the humidity super high, that you're staying on top of your watering, because I have had a lot of plants just dry out in there and unfortunately die, but you know, the majority of the plants that I put in the cabinet do really, really well. Hoyas do amazing in that cabinet because they don't necessarily need the extra humidity, but if they get a little bit more than they're used to, they usually just take off. Also, philodendrons have done relatively well in there. There have been a lot of philodendrons that I have that have actually grown out of the cabinet, and now they're just hanging out on my shelf over here. But yeah, this cabinet definitely works really, really well as a greenhouse, if you use all of the proper tools. So that's gonna be a fan, a humidifier, maybe a small humidifier, or a little fountain, lights. You definitely need all of the working pieces to make it perfect. If you have a humidifier and you don't have a fan, it's not gonna be great. If you have a fan and you don't have a humidifier or a fountain, you might dry out your plants a little bit too quickly. So just keep in mind that while this cabinet does function really well, you do need all of the working pieces to make it a greenhouse. So in the functionality department, I am going to give the cabinet a 7. I'm only giving it a 7 because it takes a little bit to get there. Once you do have your cabinet set up perfectly, it definitely runs really, really smoothly and automatically. At that stage, I would give it a 9.5 or a 10, but just because there are so many different things that you have to get to make it as perfect of a greenhouse as possible, I definitely do think that it deserves a 7. Now, the last thing that we need to discuss is the price of this cabinet. It's definitely not cheap. I personally got my cabinet for Christmas, so I didn't have to put up that money, but it's definitely a bigger purchase, so it's something that you're going to want to save up for. This cabinet, I believe, goes for about $300 on its own, maybe between 200 and 300 Canadian dollars on its own. But then when you add on top all the accessories, I believe it came out to be about $600. It's a lot of money, but I've spent a lot of money on my houseplants, and it's definitely a worthwhile investment if you really don't have a lot of time to spend on your houseplants and you make it perfect and have that working ecosystem. While it is expensive, you don't necessarily have to spend $600 for this to work. You do have to spend minimum, $450 probably to get this into a working greenhouse, but it is an expensive thing. I do think it's worth it though. For price or value of the greenhouse, I am going to give it a 6.5. I love my cabinet. I am not going to ever get rid of it. I just think that it's very expensive. So be sure that you really do want one before you go out and spend $500 or $600 on it. So yeah, that is my comprehensive review 1 year later of this beautiful cabinet. I think I'm just gonna quickly go inside of it and show you guys what's going on. All right, guys, so this is what we're looking at with the cabinet. Obviously, I have a lot of plants in here. It might be a few less than you last saw in here, but I've just been trying to disperse my plants nicely around my house, and I feel like this is the best that I could have done. I'm not going to go through and show you guys every single plant because I just did a houseplant tour. If you guys want to check that out, it's on my channel. But yeah, I just want to show you a few plants that I've added since then. I actually added this Philodendron Campos Partuanum. I actually can't remember if this was before or after, but it's definitely a new addition to the cabinet. This is the one that came for Botanicas, and it's doing really, really well. This is the brand new leaf that it put out, and it's already working on another. My Syndapsis Silver Cloud is doing really well. It did lose a few leaves up here, but now it is back and growing really beautifully. I love this plant a lot, and it's doing really well in here. It seems to be really nice and silvery. Cabinets and, bright lights tend to do that to these kinds of plants. I also have a few Hoyas in here that have always done really well. This one went from 2 leaves to, how many leaves? 7 leaves in here. So it's definitely a fan of the cabinet. And then down here we have my Plantea humidifier that I just added. I have it just facing forward here, and then the fan is actually dispersing that mist around the cabinet. So yeah, it seems to be really, really happy right now. And we have my Glorious here that is working on a brand new leaf. I just actually snapped off the old leaf that kind of dried up in here. But with the lights on and the fan on, I think that it's not going to get mushy this time around. And then we have a Snowdrift here, which a cutting is actually going to be a part of a giveaway. I will link it down below if it's started already, but yeah, I'm really excited to be able to possibly give this to one of my Canadian friends. It's a really, really beautiful plant, and I'm so excited to share it with you guys. So yeah, that's basically all the updates for the cabinet. Everything else you guys saw in my last video, but things are doing really well. Alright guys, well that's going to be it for today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed the tour of the cabinet and also the review. If you did, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe down below, also join as a member at the Hoya Hose 2.0 tier, and you will gain access to all of my extra content, Discord group chat, and everything you could possibly want a part of my memberships. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I will see you in the next one. Bye guys!